Selling a home isn't something that most people do every day because, well, if you did, then how would you even do that? That's pretty much impossible. Well, that's why. So if you're not selling your home all the time, then you might not know all of the pitfalls to avoid. You might not know exactly what the process should look like. So what I'm going to do today is share some mistakes that you can avoid, because I can't share everything that you should do in one small video. So here's 6 mistakes to avoid when selling your home. The first mistake that a lot of sellers make is they try to do all the repairs ahead of time. So they're trying to fix every little thing because they live in the home, they know what all the issues are, and they have to live with them all the time, and they maybe get really annoyed by it. So they go through, they make all these repairs, and a lot of times this is stuff that a buyer's not going to notice, or it's something that a buyer's not going to care about. See, the thing is, when a buyer goes under contract on a home, they're going to do an inspection report. So they're going to get this whole list of things, and no matter how many repairs you do, there's always going to be stuff that comes up on an inspection report. And usually it's going to be stuff that is something that you missed or something that you didn't catch. So what can happen is, if you as a seller go through, make all these repairs, and then the buyer comes through and they ask for all of these other repairs, you say, well, I did all of this. And they say, I don't care, I just want this done. So it's one of those things that can then cause some frustration or hurt feelings, or feel like they have no idea what I went through. So it's best to not go through and do all this little stuff before listing your home. Now, this doesn't include small things like changing out a light bulb, or if there's like a really obvious thing that's easy to do. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all the little stuff throughout the home. An inspection report is going to cover that. It's best to just save your money ahead of time, wait for the inspection report, and then make your repairs then. The second mistake a lot of sellers make is they make a lot of upgrades to their home before selling it. Now, upgrades can be a really good thing. Sometimes something is so outdated that it's such an eyesore that it may detract buyers from the home. But a lot of times people will spend tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they just can't help themselves, and making their home look absolutely beautiful, which is okay. But the problem is, many times a lot of these projects aren't going to get a positive return on investment, or ROI. So it's important to be very intentional of what kind of upgrades or what kind of projects you take on before selling your home. This is why I like talking to sellers 6 months or so before selling their home, and just saying, hey, focus on these things and not on these things, because there's a lot of data out there on what's going to be a positive ROI and what's not. But also it does depend on the home, and sometimes it's just a gut feel, because I've been through so many homes that I know what people are going to look at and what they're not going to look at, what they're going to care about and what they're not. So it's important to have a conversation with a real estate professional to know what kind of projects you should work on and what you shouldn't. The third mistake, and some may call this a mistake, some may not call it a mistake, and I actually cover this in another video, is not staging. So should you stage, should you not stage? Again, I just covered this in a previous video. But here's the thing. If you stage your home, there's a really good chance that you're going to get more money for it. Now, I'm talking about homes that are completely vacant. This is a home that you moved all your stuff out. Maybe you've already moved into your next place, wherever you're going to be. If your home's vacant and someone goes into that empty space, it's really hard for them to imagine themselves living there. People don't typically buy logically based on, the square footage and condition of all this other stuff, the stuff that they're actually going to get. They buy based on emotion. Can they see themselves living there? Can they see themselves having the life that they want there? So staging is one of those things that a lot of agents don't do, but it actually can make a really positive impact if you stage, and potentially a negative impact if you don't stage, if your home is completely vacant. And I've seen this many times. And again, I did another video about this, so you can check that out to get my thoughts on staging. The fourth thing that is extremely common is starting the list price too high. Now, there's a book called Freakonomics, and it talks about some interesting stats here. There's an inherent conflict of interest that realtors want to sell a home quickly, because to them, say a $10,000 difference in sale price, if they're only getting, say, 3% total of that commission, then a $3,000 difference is only a $300 difference to them. So a realtor, based on the financial incentive, doesn't care whether a price comes in low or not. They just want to get their paycheck. So this is why it's really important to work with an agent that you really trust, whose opinion you trust, and who is just trustworthy in general. I'm a really strong believer in that. At the same time, If you list your home too high, it's going to sit on the market for longer and is most likely going to sell for less than what you could have sold it at if you listed it at the correct price to begin with. And I've seen this many times, is a home sits on the market for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then people begin to say, there's something wrong with this home, what's going on here? And then just because the home's been on the market for so long, people think that there's something wrong with it because no one else has bought it yet. So this is why it's really important to price a home correctly. Because on the other hand, obviously you don't want to price the home too low because then you're leaving money on the table. And if we're not in an extremely hot market where there's going to be bidding wars, then you're just going to get a full price offer, but that's less than what you could have got. So this is why data is so important. And this is why I always look into the data. And I talk about that in another video about 10 things that your realtor should do. The thing is though, there's actually a really specific reason why most sellers want to list their home for a higher price than it's actually worth. And I experienced this a few years ago when listing my parents' home that was the childhood home that I grew up in. And I knew the home as where I made all these positive memories. We had so much fun, we had people over, we'd have parties, and there were just so many things that I absolutely loved about that home. We went to sell it and I thought we listed it at a very fair price. But people kept saying, oh, no, that's in a terrible part of town, or no, the street's too loud, it's a really busy street, or we don't like this, we don't like that, we don't like the layout, we don't like that it doesn't have central air conditioning. And I got a taste of what it's like to tell someone that your personal home isn't worth what they think it is, that it's not special. And so I was kind of stubborn along with my parents. We said, no, like this isn't right. Ultimately, we had to do a price reduction, and I don't know if we would have sold the home for more if we hadn't waited. I don't know what would have happened, but all I know is we had to do a price reduction, and ultimately the home sold for less than I think that it would have if we had just priced it correctly to begin with. Again, this is why it's really important to know what other homes listed for and sold for. Sold price isn't the whole story. It's also what did it start at, and then where did it finish? Did it start here, go on the market for several days, and then have to drop price? Or did it start low, and when does it bid up? These are all really important things that your realtor should be doing, and that I do on every home that I list. The fifth mistake a lot of sellers make is an unwillingness to negotiate. We kind of talked about this at the beginning. If you've done all this stuff, you think your home's perfect, and then a buyer comes in with all the requests, and you say, absolutely not, I want nothing to do with it. Sometimes that can be really reasonable. You don't want someone coming in and telling you everything that's wrong with your home. Just like when you're a guest at someone's home, you don't come in and say, I don't like this, and I don't like this. It's just not what we're used to. So sometimes it's easy to get offended and not want to negotiate. So this is why it's really important to have a realtor with really strong negotiation skills. And to know what is negotiable or what should be negotiated and what's just unreasonable, because there is a balance. The thing is though, that almost all the time, a home is going to sell for more the first time it's under contract than if it goes back on the market and comes back on. So if you have to go out of escrow or you have to break contract with a buyer and go back to the market, usually you're not going to make as much money. So sometimes buyer agents are a little bit unscrupulous and they kind of count on this. So they come in, promise everything, and then they're extremely unreasonable to deal with. So this is why it's also important to know that the highest offer is not always the best offer. It's kind of another conversation, but it's good to have an agent who is going to know, hey, is this person actually just blowing smoke, or is this actually a really good offer? Is this someone who's going to be good to negotiate with? But ultimately, you got to know what are the things that you need to concede on and just say, okay, you know what, that's fine. And where are the things that you should hold your ground on? And not knowing how to do this properly is a mistake that a lot of sellers make. The sixth mistake that a lot of people make is, well, and I've kind of been hinting at this for a long time, is not hiring a solid realtor. A lot of people choose a realtor just based on a family or friend relationship without really actually digging into, is this person really good at what they do? And it's not just about sales volume. A lot of agents sell a lot of homes, but they're not really good at what they do. They treat everyone like a number and they just crank them through a process, and people can feel like they were taken advantage of or that they weren't actually cared about or valued. And at the same time, you don't want someone who's completely green and doesn't know what they're doing or is unprofessional. That's kind of another thing. And I covered this in a different video about 10 things that your realtor should do or things to be aware of when you're hiring a realtor. You don't want just anyone to be selling the most expensive investment you have. You want to really vet them and make sure that they're good at what they do, that they're going to market your home properly, that they're going to negotiate well, that they're going to be easy to work with, that they're going to be trustworthy. There's all these things that really matter when choosing a real estate agent. Well, I hope this has been helpful, and I hope if you're selling your home that the process goes smoothly for you. And if you're living in the Newberg area or in the surrounding areas, I would love to help you sell your home. You can reach me by phone there at the bottom. Also, my email is going to pop up there, and you can give me a call or email, whichever is easiest for you. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next video.